What if everything we thought we knew about Russia-China relations is being rewritten by an unexpected handshake in Alaska? It began as a footnote in the headlines, a potential U.S. Russia summit featuring Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. But beneath that headline lies a strategic gamble that could fracture global alliances and reshape world power. Here's the question we're asking today on Epoch Report. Would Vladimir Putin turn his back on China for Trump? Could America, with Trump back in the spotlight, lure Russia away from its no-limits partnership with China? Before we dive in, let's hear from you. Do you think Russia would ever betray China under the right circumstances? Yes or no? Drop your comment below. We want to hear your take. In today's video, we're unpacking a major geopolitical twist that most media outlets are ignoring. What's really at stake behind this secret Alaska meeting? Could a U.S. Russia partnership reshape the West's rivalry with China? And what would China do if that alliance threat became real? There's more than diplomacy at stake. At the end of this video, we'll reveal why this potential realignment could either be a masterstroke or a massive miscalculation. When the news broke about a possible meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska, the online buzz was immediate. Could Washington and Moscow be warming up, not just to end the war in Ukraine, but to strategically contain China? This wasn't just diplomacy. Location itself said something. Alaska, far from Europe, closer to Asia, neutral but pointed. A symbolic choice. This wasn't about NATO or the EU. This was about reconfiguring the map and the power players of the next decade. The agenda. Officially, it revolves around one topic: a ceasefire in Ukraine. But when Russia's conditions are unpacked, the stakes become far more complex. Putin reportedly wants Ukraine to permanently give up claims to 4 eastern regions, areas Russia currently occupies, and commit never to join NATO. For Trump, agreeing to these conditions isn't an easy sell. The global backlash, let alone American public opinion, would be vicious, especially on sovereignty and territorial integrity. But what if that's not the goal? What if Trump's real strategy is about a bigger win? Trump has a reputation for transactional diplomacy. His interest in peace isn't just ideological. It's political, economic, and strategic. Ending the war in Ukraine could check several boxes for him. First, stopping military aid reduces America's growing burden. There's fatigue in Congress and among voters about funding a foreign war with no clear exit. Second, it aligns with his campaign pledge to end forever wars. It's a powerful message for voters tired of overseas entanglements. Third, it bolsters Trump as a dealmaker and peacemaker, the type of global statesman who wins Nobel Peace Prizes. But most critically, forging a reset with Russia isolates China, and that point deserves serious attention. Trump believes that Chinese-Russian relations have grown far too cozy. Consider this. In 2021, China exported $67.5 billion worth of goods to Russia. Just 2 years later, that figure jumped to $115.4 billion. And the Chinese yuan now makes up nearly 50% of Russia's foreign currency reserves. That's not just trade, that's alliance economics. And it sets off alarm bells in Washington. Trump's bigger play? Sever that economic link by bringing Moscow closer to the U.S.? The logic is simple. End the war, lift sanctions, and tempt Russia with Western markets once more. So let's pose the big question. Should China feel threatened by this possible U.S. Russia rapprochement? In a word, not really. Let's look at 2 case studies. Start with India. It's 2020. India has taken a high-profile stance against Beijing, from border skirmishes to boycotts of Chinese products. But fast forward to today, and China remains India's top trading partner. Why? Because manufacturing scale, supply chains, and industrial capabilities still firmly tilt toward China. Dependency hasn't vanished, it's evolved. Now remember Trump's 2018 trade war against China. Tariffs soared, tech sanctions piled up. But the result? China's exports globally held firm, even growing. In fact, not only did China survive, it became the world's largest semiconductor exporter in 2023. In contrast, U.S. retailers and manufacturers bore the brunt of the disruption. Price hikes, product shortages, and no real WTO resolution in sight. The reality is that across many sectors, from electronics to rare earths to the green energy transition, China plays an irreplaceable role. So, isolating China economically is not as simple as it sounds, even if Washington tries to bring in Moscow to help. If you're still watching, you're clearly not here for surface-level takes. Here at Epic Report, we dig deep into the threads that the mainstream media barely touches. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on the bell. We're just getting started. Even if Trump manages to court Putin, would it last? Let's break down the structure of Russia's current economic relationships. Russia exports resources: oil, gas, wheat, ass. Meanwhile, exports industrial goods. From consumer electronics to infrastructure materials, the synergy is clean. The relationship is complementary. Now contrast that with U.S. Russia trade. Both are major energy exporters. Both ship out agricultural products. Industrially, they compete more than they collaborate. And the U.S. no longer has extensive industrial capacity to offer. It's Russia outside defense and high-tech components. So if Moscow turns westward again, who benefits? Perhaps some sectors in Russia would enjoy short-term gains if sanctions were lifted, but long-term, the U.S. and Russia sit in structurally competitive spaces: energy, military, and farming. Which begs the next question. Would Russian elites really abandon a rising China for a cooling U.S., especially when the political risks are baked in? Let's say Trump lifts sanctions. Europe reopens to Russian energy. Nord Stream is rebuilt or replaced. Who wins? Russia, no doubt. But who loses? American gas companies? American farms? The entire U.S. effort to displace Russian influence in Europe? Undone. And there lies the paradox. A U.S.-Russia peace might destabilize Washington's core energy goals in Europe. Trump's own voter base, largely rooted in agricultural and fossil fuel industries, might revolt if they see Russian competitors re-enter the market. Plus, U.S. foreign policy flipping on a 4-year cycle makes it risky for any nation to bank on lasting alignment. Putin knows that better than most. This isn't the first time America and Russia flirted with cooperation. 2 decades ago, President George W. Bush embraced Putin as a potential ally. At one point, Putin even floated the idea of joining NATO, but behind the scenes, strategist Henry Kissinger warned, a Russian-European bloc would sideline the U.S. completely in Europe. NATO would be reduced to a shell, and U.S. hegemony would fracture. The honeymoon didn't last. The alliance never materialized, and for good reason. Fast forward. Under Biden's leadership, the U.S. hardened its stance. The Russia-Ukraine war hijacked Europe's Russian gas dependency. Nord Stream was blown up. Russia's turn away from the West became irreversible. Question is, can Trump reverse all of that in one term? Doubtful. Let's get to the heart of the question. Would Putin, if given the right deal by Trump, abandon China? The short answer is no. Not the Putin of 2025. The Russian leader has learned the hard way that Washington deals don't always last. Sanctions can snap back. Promises fade with a new administration. And after being outmaneuvered multiple times by the West, he's unlikely to fully recalibrate toward America. China, on the other hand, offers long-term strategic cooperation, shared interests in multipolar global governance, a common front against Western pressure, and complementary economies. So while Putin may use any Trump overture as leverage, a full-blown betrayal of Beijing seems highly unlikely. Now, what if Trump pulls it off? What if there's even a symbolic alliance between the U.S., Russia, and Europe? Would China collapse? Likely 50 years ago, China faced both an aggressive Soviet Union and a hostile United States. Back then, China was poor, isolated, and industrially under-equipped. Today's China is a vastly different player. It holds the world's largest foreign exchange reserves. It's a tech power, and it's the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries. China's strategy has always been respond flexibly, prepare alternatives, and never confront head-on if avoidable. A U.S.-Russia alliance would certainly add pressure, but it won't undo decades of strategic growth. And we want to hear from you. Do you think Russia would actually walk away from China for a better deal with Trump? Or is this just posturing for leverage? Let us know your take in the comments. We read every one. If this analysis gave you new angles to think about, don't just click to follow our channel and turn on bell notifications, because timing matters. And in geopolitics, what happens one day can reshape markets the next. This has been Epic Report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.